Now, let's move the conversation to Funzani Mtembu, who's a development economist for more. A very good evening to you, Funzani. Thank you so much for your time. We, of course, are looking to speak to Funzani in just a moment, as we do, of course, continue the conversation. I understand we have Funzani on the screen for us to talk to us a little bit more about some expectations. Funzani Mtembu, development economist, very good evening to you. What are your expectations over the budget vote tomorrow?
Good evening to yourself and the viewers at home. I think, after the happenings of today, where the Finance Committee actually sat down to approve or not approve the fiscal framework, what we can deduce from that particular sitting is that tomorrow we can expect the budget to be passed. And that's because of how that voting of the fiscal framework went about, right? What we know is that three of the parties, which is the MK, the DA, and the EFF, from very different ideological standpoints, rejected VAT and opted to amend the fiscal framework. However, Action SA did not opt for the amendment of the fiscal framework. So what that means is that they actually just made a recommendation to say to the ruling party currently that they will vote with them, and they recommend that they come back after 30 days with a different kind of set of options with regard to raising revenue that is not VAT, right? But then what that means is that it's a recommendation. It's not necessarily an amendment. It's not binding to the ruling party that they actually stay on that. So tomorrow what we can expect perhaps is that the Action SA will be voting with them, and it seems as though the leader of Action SA has been misinformed with regards to this. So it will be interesting to just watch how things will pan out tomorrow. But that's the context from today's sitting.
So the Black Business Council, I've just spoken to Hanki Matabana just before you were on, and he was speaking about the ripple effect of the VAT on small businesses, how small businesses will suffer the most. A lot of economists generally consider VAT as regressive. What's your take on this?
It is a very regressive tax, and precisely because it disproportionately affects those who are lower income earning, or rather those who are poor in particular. It's regressive because of that, and it then has very negative impacts on small businesses. And what that also means is that, there was a study that was done by the South African Reserve Bank, and I think that's also part of the reason why Mr. Lisija Kganyago, the governor, was against VAT, right? Because there was a study that was done by the Reserve Bank that actually showed that with a VAT increase, particularly the 2018 VAT increase, came about inflation and less consumer. There was less consumer spending as well. So those are and when inflation comes, increases, right? What that means is that they also have to then respond to this increase in inflation, and therefore they will then have to utilize interest rates to ensure that they control inflation. And so what we are seeing then is that there is a ripple effect on particularly people on the ground, on businesses in particular, and that may actually even have an impact as well on employment, because on unemployment, right? Because one of the ways in which we can actually cut unemployment in this country is through small businesses.
Yeah.
And so if small businesses are struggling, then what that means is that we can't address the issue of unemployment effectively.
There was some good news today for motorists, particularly the fuel price decrease. I mean, what's your take on that? I mean, as we look at some of the reasoning behind it.
I mean, that's a good a start. For instance, at least to have the consumer having a little bit more disposable income in their pockets. But I think in the major part, if you really look at the living, the cost of living has increased over time, and the consumer is under pressure currently. If we want to speak on the question of the consumer and consumer consumption, and I mean, when consumption is down, also that puts pressure on aggregate demand, and therefore growth as well. And I think we need to really respond to that. And currently where we are at, where the consumer is at, unfortunately, we are not. Yes, there is a bit of a relief in terms of petrol prices. But then if you look, for instance, with taxis, a taxi when petrol prices go down, they don't necessarily go down in their prices. Yeah. Right? A majority of our country use taxis. The motorists, are those that can actually afford to have cars. And even the middle class in South Africa is struggling currently. So, it's not a good picture where we are sitting currently.
Very well. Thank you so much for weighing in on the conversation. Wrapping it there with Funzani Mtembu, development economist, speaking about some expectations ahead of the budget vote tomorrow and, of course, the impact of the fuel price decrease.